before the date arrives, before the sky reaches that specific point of darkness and reset. Something in the atmosphere of your inner life has already started moving, quietly, almost imperceptibly, like a current beneath still water. You may have noticed it as a strange heaviness that has no obvious cause, or as a tenderness that surfaces at unexpected moments, a feeling that sits just behind your sternum without quite resolving into an emotion you can name. Maybe you've been sleeping differently, dreaming more vividly, waking up with fragments of images or feelings that belong to a version of yourself you thought you'd moved past. Most people don't connect these experiences to anything. They file them under tiredness, under stress, under the general weight of being a person navigating a complicated world. They move through the sensation without stopping to ask what it might be pointing toward. But you are here, which means some part of you already suspects there is more to what you've been feeling. Some part of you recognizes that the subtle signals arriving right now are not background noise. They are a prologue. The Pisces new moon is approaching on March 19th. And the days leading up to it, the days you are living through right now, are not neutral time. They are some of the most energetically potent and emotionally charged days of the entire lunar cycle. And almost nobody is talking about what actually happens in this window, or why it matters as much as it does. Here is something that doesn't get said often enough about new moons. Everyone focuses on the moment itself, the exact lunar phase, the fresh start, the intentions you're supposed to set when the sky goes dark. And yes, that moment carries real power. But there is an entire energetic architecture that builds in the days before a new moon arrives, and that architecture is doing something very specific. It is dismantling. In the 3 to 4 days before a new moon, the waning crescent light thins to almost nothing. The sky gets darker and darker each night, and something in the human psyche responds to that darkness, not with fear but with depth. The veil between what you feel on the surface and what you carry underneath gets thinner. Things that were compressed or compartmentalized find a way to rise. Emotions that you've been managing from a distance start closing the gap. Memories arrive without being invited. And your intuition, the quiet, wordless intelligence that lives beneath your thinking mind, starts speaking more clearly than it has in weeks. This is the balsamic phase, the final exhale of the lunar cycle. And in any month, this phase asks something of you. But in a Pisces new moon cycle, it doesn't just ask. It insists. Because Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac. The final chapter. The place where everything that wasn't finished across the entire year of experience gets gathered and distilled. Pisces holds the accumulated emotional sediment of everything you've lived through, and when the new moon falls here, the reset is unlike any other reset in the calendar. It goes deeper. It reaches further back. It touches things you may not have consciously thought about in months or years, but that have been living inside you quietly this whole time, waiting for exactly this kind of darkness to become visible. In the days before this Pisces new moon, you may have been experiencing a very specific quality of feeling, a softening of the usual edges, a loosening of the certainty you normally carry about who you are and what you want. Things that felt resolved may have started feeling unresolved again, not because they've changed, but because you're seeing them from a deeper angle. The emotional logic you built around certain decisions, certain endings, certain relationships may have begun to feel less solid, like a wall you constructed carefully, and now you can see the light coming through the gaps. This is the work of the Pisces pre-new moon window, and it is extraordinarily easy to misread, because from the inside, it can feel like regression, like you're going backwards, like you're losing the ground you spent so long claiming. You made peace with something, and now it doesn't feel peaceful. You moved on from something, and now it doesn't feel like you moved on at all. You built a stable story about your life, and now the story has too many footnotes. What is actually happening is that you are being prepared. The Pisces new moon doesn't reset what is finished. It resets what was sealed too soon. It returns you, gently and with enormous precision, to the emotional coordinates of things that need a second look. A more honest look. A look that doesn't flinch from what is actually there. And the buildup you are experiencing right now, the strange tenderness and the surfacing memories and the dreams that carry too much weight. That is the process of being brought back into contact with those coordinates. The new moon isn't doing this on March 19th. It has already started. You're already in it. Think about what has been asking for your attention in the last several days. The recurring thought you keep returning to even when you try to redirect yourself. The feeling that has been traveling alongside you like a quiet companion. Present in the morning before you're fully awake. Present again in the late afternoon when your mind loses its grip on the day's agenda. The face or the name or the chapter of your life that keeps floating to the surface of your awareness, even though there is nothing in your external circumstances that seems to be calling it up. This is Pisces energy in its most direct form. Pisces does not communicate through logic. It does not send you a clear message with a clear instruction. It speaks in feeling, in image, in the kind of knowing that arrives before you've had a chance to think about it. It works through your dreams and your peripheral vision, and those moments of sudden, unaccountable emotion that arrive like weather, quickly, without warning, and then move on, leaving you changed in some small but significant way. If you have been feeling more porous than usual in these days, more affected by things, more easily moved, more susceptible to beauty or sadness or the particular quality of light at a certain hour, that is not weakness. That is attunement. Your system is responding to the frequency of this approaching new moon. It is opening up, getting softer, and it is doing this so that when the new moon arrives, you are receptive enough to receive what it is offering. The reset of Pisces new moon initiates is not administrative. You cannot plan your way into it. You cannot journal your way through it with bullet points and intentions. It asks for something more interior, more surrender-like than that. It asks you to stop insisting on what you know and to become curious about what you feel. To let the feeling lead you somewhere before you decide where it goes. There is a specific phenomenon that tends to occur in the days directly before a Pisces new moon, and once you know to look for it, you will recognize it immediately in your own experience. Truths that have been living below the surface of your conscious awareness begin to press upward. They don't announce themselves dramatically. They arrive in quiet moments, in the pause between one task and the next, in the space just before sleep, in the middle of an ordinary conversation, when something someone says lands differently than it should, and you feel a door inside yourself open that you didn't even know was there. These are the hidden truths that Pisces specializes in surfacing. The emotional realities that you've been too busy or too defended or too committed to your current story to acknowledge. The things you know but haven't let yourself know you know. The grief that got filed away before it was complete. The desire that felt too fragile or too inconvenient to fully inhabit. The love for a person, for a version of yourself, for a life you imagined and then set aside, that never actually left, even when you told yourself it had. Right now, in this window, those things are close to the surface. They are as close as they are going to get before the new moon arrives. And what you do with that proximity matters enormously. Because this is a choice point that most people don't recognize as a choice point. The instinct is to manage these feelings back down. To remind yourself that you've already processed this. That you made your peace with it. That you're not going back there. But what if going back there isn't regression? What if going back there is the whole point? The Pisces new moon on March 19th is happening at a moment that carries unusual weight. We are simultaneously in the final days of Mercury retrograde, which has already been doing its own excavation work, surfacing old conversations, returning unresolved connections, creating the conditions for truths to re-emerge that were buried under the momentum of ordinary life. And now the new moon approaches in Pisces, which is the deepest emotional water in the zodiac. These two energies together, the retrograde's unearthing motion and the Pisces new moon's dissolving depth, create a convergence that doesn't happen often with this level of intensity. The days you are living through right now sit at the intersection of two powerful cycles, both moving toward conclusion. Mercury stations direct around March 20th. The new moon falls on March 19th. You are, in the most literal energetic sense, standing at a threshold. And thresholds ask something specific of you. They ask you to acknowledge that what is behind you and what is ahead of you are not entirely separate. That the version of yourself who has been living through this period of excavation and emotional surfacing is the same version who will cross into the next lunar cycle. Nothing gets automatically left behind just because a date changes. What gets left behind is what you choose to put down consciously with understanding. What gets carried forward is what you name and therefore transform. The buildup you've been feeling, the accumulation of emotion and intuition and memory and strange knowing, is your inner life offering you the raw material for that transformation. The Pisces new moon is the moment when the forge reaches temperature, but the metal has been heating since before you noticed. Here is where the story turns, and it is the turn that changes everything about how you understand what you've been experiencing. You may have been waiting for clarity, waiting for the confused or tender or unresolved feelings of these last several days to organize themselves into a clear answer, a clear direction, a clear signal about what to do or who to be or which path leads somewhere worth going. That is a very human thing to want. Clarity is comforting. Clarity feels like solid ground. But the Pisces new moon is not offering clarity in that form. Pisces is the sign of dissolution, not destruction, but the gentle, necessary process by which rigid boundaries soften enough to allow something new to come through. The kind of reset it initiates is felt before it is understood. It arrives as a shift in how you feel about your life before it arrives as a change in your life's circumstances. Which means the most important signal you could receive right now is the emotional one. The one that tells you something has already shifted inside you even if nothing has changed on the outside yet. The one that shows up as a sudden release of something you'd been holding without realizing how hard you were holding it. A moment of unexpected peace about something that has been a source of tension. A moment of unexpected grief about something you had convinced yourself didn't matter anymore. Both of these are the same thing. Both are the Pisces new moon beginning to do its work through you before it technically arrives. The twist in this story is this: you have been waiting for the new moon to give you something. But the new moon has been waiting for you to receive what has already been delivered. The signals have been arriving for days. The shift has already begun. The only thing that determines how much of it reaches you is how willing you are to stop managing your inner life long enough to actually inhabit it. In the hours and days remaining before March 19th, something very specific is available to you that will close when this window closes. And I want you to understand what it is, because it is rare. The combination of the balsamic lunar energy, the depth of Pisces, and the concluding motion of Mercury retrograde creates a kind of transparency that doesn't exist at most other moments in the year. Your own inner life becomes unusually legible to you during this window. The stories you tell yourself become briefly visible as stories. The defenses you maintain become briefly visible as defenses. The distance you keep from your own emotional truth becomes briefly visible as distance, and in that visibility becomes briefly crossable. This is the gift hidden inside the discomfort of what you've been feeling. The sensitivity, the porousness, the dreams, the surfacing memories, the strange emotion that arrives without a clear cause. All of it is a form of transparency. Your system has temporarily stopped insisting on its own opacity. And in that openness, something true is trying to reach you. The question is whether you will let it. The question is whether you will give yourself enough stillness in these remaining days to let the signal complete its transmission. Because the signals that arrive before a Pisces new moon are not loud. They will not compete with the noise of your daily life if you let that noise run at full volume. They arrive in the quiet, in the spaces you clear, in the moments when you put down your phone and sit with what's actually moving through you, without immediately trying to fix it or explain it or decide what it means. You don't need to know what it means yet. You just need to let it arrive. After the new moon on March 19th, the energy will begin to shift in a very specific way. The darkness gives way to the first sliver of new light. Mercury stations direct around the same time. The dissolution and excavation of this entire period begins to consolidate into something more navigable. The emotional raw material that has been surfacing will start to look less like chaos and more like information. Patterns will emerge. Clarity will arrive, but a Pisces kind of clarity, which is less like a sharp line and more like a fog gradually lifting to reveal a landscape you somehow already knew was there. But the degree to which that clarity reaches you, the depth of the reset you carry out of this new moon, depends enormously on what you do with this window right now. Not what you decide, not what you plan, what you feel, what you allow, what you stop running from long enough to actually encounter. There is something in your life right now that this Pisces new moon is asking you to look at directly. You already know what it is. It has been appearing in different forms for the last several days. In your dreams, in your mood, in the things that have been making you unexpectedly emotional, in the recurring thought that keeps finding you no matter how many times you redirect your attention. It is the thing beneath the things, the feeling beneath the feelings. And the Pisces new moon, in its deep and ancient and patient way, is simply asking you to stop pretending you don't feel it, to stop organizing your life around the avoidance of it, to let it be real, and in letting it be real, to discover that it is survivable. More than survivable. That inside it, waiting to be found, is the exact understanding you need to move forward with a wholeness that you've been missing without quite knowing what was missing. As March 19th approaches, I want to leave you with something simple. Something that doesn't require action or analysis or a plan. In the days remaining before this new moon, pay attention to what keeps finding you. The dream that lingers. The feeling that won't be managed away. The quiet knowing that sits at the edge of your awareness, patient and unhurried, waiting for you to finally turn and look at it fully. These are the signals of the Pisces new moon buildup. They are not random. They are not symptoms of something wrong. They are the most honest communication your inner life knows how to send. And they are arriving now because now is when you are ready to receive them, whether you feel ready or not. The new moon on March 19th will come. The cycle will reset. The new light will return. But what you carry into that reset, what you have been willing to feel and acknowledge and sit with in the quiet days before it arrives, that is what determines not just what you release, but what you become. The signals are already there. They have been there. And somewhere beneath the noise of everything you're managing and everything you're carrying, you can already feel them. The only question left is whether you will let yourself listen.